I'm Catherine Sheeran, host of the podcast Horse Tales with Cat. Today's episode is a continuation of my conversation with Canadian show jumping legend Eric Lamaze. If you haven't heard part 1, you will want to go back to episode 38, which dropped on February 27th. We resume our conversation with Eric after talking a bit about his health and are going to address some of the lawsuits that were filed against him. Eric, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Catherine.
I think we should lead with lawsuits filed against trainers are not uncommon. In fact, it happens more often in the sport than one would know. And I think it's also interesting to note that they're normally filed in the US because the requirements for filing lawsuits in Canada require a lot more proof.
Absolutely. It's much easier in the US. And the thing about the US is as soon as it comes out, you're guilty before you even have the chance to defend yourself. And everything is public, which in Canada, as you know, you would not be able to see what's going on with the case. As in Florida, anybody can go and see the record and see the case, read about the case as the case is unfold. So it's two different systems for sure.
Let's start with the case that's really impacted you the most financially and professionally.
Well, the case is with Nika. It has to do with Muffy Guthrie and Mark Rain. Originally, me and Muffy Guthrie were partners in the mare. Nika I bought she was coming 8 years old, I believe. I bought her from Axel Verloyd. And the mare, I'm glad that that's me that was trying her. Because the people on the ground, I was excited. The jump felt really incredible. But the people on the ground that worked for me, they weren't so excited. They were like, "What do you see in this horse?" And I said, "It feels amazing." And they were like, "No, it's too heavy. It's too this, it's too that." I said, "No, it feels really light, I'm telling you." And I was really sold on the mare. It gave me a great feeling. I contacted Muffy and then told her that I had a horse that was perhaps something that's worth investing in. And she did so, and off the horse went to Florida. I believe the mare was just a very good horse and a money-making horse that we would do very well selling it. I mean, I didn't think the horse would be as good as it turned out to be. And right from the beginning, when she started to show in Florida, I was like, oh my God, this is an incredible horse. At the time, Mark Rain owned a lot of horses in my stable, a lot of good horses, but this mare was exceptional. Everybody was trying to buy it and whatnot. And I felt like, A, I wanted to keep it, and B, I wanted Mark to own it because as a major owner in my stable, I wanted him to own the best horse that we had. I didn't want him to be the clients that had so many horses, but he did not have the best horse in the barn. And at that time, I believed that she was going to turn in to be the best horse in the barn. I approached Mark into buying the mare, thought he would buy the mare himself. And at the end of it, he said that he was busy with a lot of things. He had bought already a lot of horses. He said, give me a day to think about it. He called me back. And he said, listen, I would buy Muffy's share out of the horse out, but I would not feeling comfortable buying the entire horse out. So would you stay in the horse with me? And I said, okay, I'll stay in the horse with you. And Mark became my partner in the horse. We had to talk Muffy into it. She was not keen on selling the horse so fast. She was enjoying watching her go and everything, but she understood my situation. And she was kind enough to let the deal go through. And Mark Rain bought the half of her share. This is how the deal was formed. And afterwards, I told Muffy, I said, look, if you want to remain a silent partner in the horse with me, your name won't be announced. But if there's a major deal down the road with the mare, and I have a feeling it will be, you will be part of it. You won't miss on the action. And she said, no, thank you, I appreciate it, but if my name cannot be announced, attached to the horse, I have no interest in owning any part of it. So that was that. And then at that time, immediately, she signed the passport over, and then she stopped paying bills on the mare. So she was now completely out of the deal. I was clear with her. I was done. Mark was the new owner with me, and that was a done deal. Later on, as the mare progressed throughout the fall, we ended up getting an offer from a Japanese fellow that wanted the horse for the Olympic eventually. The mare just won a 2-star Grand Prix with Nina and was jumping incredible. And then I put a big price on the horse just to see. I knew Mark wasn't much of a seller. He didn't really want to sell much. They came back and they were still interested at the price that I put onto them. So I called Mark and I told him, I said, listen, I think we have a serious buyer for a lot of money. And he said he was not interested in selling. And we had planned to take her to the Olympic and do this and do that. And for him, it was a horse of a lifetime. And he didn't really want to sell it. I could not I'm not in the business of owning $6 million horses and staying in it. For me, it was a lot of money. And I told Mark, I said, look, I know you're having fun with this, but at the end of the day, I can't stay in the horse for that kind of money. I got to, it makes no sense. So I said, the only way is that you buy me out. He thought about it for a while, discussed it with his wife, and then came back to me. I gave him a deal on the price. I didn't go with the original price that I told the Japanese. We lowered the standard and he bought my half and he became the sole owner of the mare. And maybe I was in for 5%. He always gave me 5% on all the horses. So that's what I was at. This is what started the lawsuit because Muffy heard about this transaction and all of a sudden she came out of nowhere and felt entitled to get some of this money, which I didn't understand where she was coming from. Since she had abandoned it, she never watched a horse. She signed everything over. It was clear. She had no part. She had no action. She had no stake in the horse. It was clear that it was me and Mark. And this is what started the lawsuit. She started the lawsuit quite severely because her lawsuit was weak and she wanted to freeze my assets. She had to get a bond, a very expensive bond that she got to be able to freeze my asset and on all my accounts, the private, business, both business, everything was shut down. You're supposed to be served when your accounts are going to be frozen. I was never served. Nobody told me anything about anything. I found out trying to send the wire to somebody, and the accounts were at zero and nothing was working. And I inquired what was that, and then that's how I came down. I found out that it was Muffy that did the frozen of my asset. Let me tell you, it's no fun. It's no fun at all. When your accounts are frozen and you can't even go to McDonald's or you have access to zero money. Thank God I had some generous friend that helped me out. And even with my attorney, I have a lot of friends that help paying for an attorney for me from Ocala. And this is where the lawsuit started. So about a week after she froze my asset, we filed for an emergency hearing, and we got one within 10 days to regain my asset because she had no case. She absolutely had no case. She's been out of the horse, so how can she claim that now she wanted part of that money? It makes no sense to me. And she was suing me for that, which was outrageous. Anyway, so we went to court through Zoom call. And the judge was there. I was there. I was on the road. I explained the situation. That's what I'm telling you now. Muffy was on the road as well. She said what she had to say. And at the end of that hearing, the judge ordered my asset to be unfrozen. So we won that day. And for the lawyers of Muffy to release my funds immediately to my lawyer. And that was it.
Or so you thought. That would be the end of it.
I thought. But the judge asked the lawyer to do it that day that she decided that I would get my asset back. And Muffy's lawyer said that she was busy. She had another clients to see, and she was going to do it when she had a chance. And my lawyer was pretty laid back. So a few days gone back, and I think he was trying to call her, and we didn't receive any feedback from her whatsoever. We couldn't get her on the phone. And at the end, she had appealed me getting my frozen asset back. She had appealed that decision from the judge. And she also had appeal on the upper level, on the higher court. So she appealed it to 2 courts to make sure that I would not get my asset back. So at the end, we were fighting. Normally, a case like this to get your asset back lasts at least the very long it could last is 1 week. We were in for 9 months, going back and forth, having numerous Zoom calls, numerous everything, and still we're not in agreement. I won it twice. I won it the first day I went to court. I won it later on for a short time. The judge ordered that my funds be released, and then afterwards there was a stay put back on it, so it was not released. And then it was supposed to be released after 6 months because it's a maximum time. They cannot go past 6 months. And when it was over 6 months, we wrote to the judge that the assets should be returned, and because it was over 6 months, and blah, blah, blah. The judge never sent anything back, ignored us. And so at the end, I had no way of going to that. So basically, the case went on for about 9 months, back and forth, many Zoom calls that added to nothing, many cancellations from the judge. And one would think, how can you lose this case? The way that I just, describe how the deal was. How can you lose the case? Well, I lost the case. First of all, me and my attorney did not get along at all. He wanted to be out of it, and I wanted him out of it. But the judge would never let him stop being my attorney. She wouldn't let him quit. She was saying, no, you must stay on, you must stay on, you must stay on. Well, the day that I lost the case, in the morning, we get on the Zoom call, and my attorney's there and everything, and the judge agreed that he can step out of this case and not continue as my attorney. So there we went like that. So I was left by myself answering questions by the judge, by Muffy's attorney. I wasn't equipped to do all that, and with nobody objecting to anything. This is how I lost the case. At the end of it, the judge basically just said, we award everything to Muffy Guthrie. I have to pay her lawyer's fee. I have to pay everything. And then I changed attorney, went to Brad Kelsey. And he says, what is this nonsense? I never heard a judge leaving a person without an attorney. What she should have done is cancel the Zoom call, tell me to go look for another attorney quickly, and then continue that Zoom call at a later date when I had an attorney. But she didn't do that. So at the end, we filed an appeal on the ground of many things that happened throughout the case. We filed an appeal, and I think 8 months later, it came back that I won the appeal on the basis that the judge left me without an attorney present, and many of the things that the judges had done made it that I won the appeal, and now the case went back to zero. And normally when the case goes back to zero, I should get my money at this point. But I still couldn't get my money because we didn't know where it was. I didn't know what was happening. At this point, I had no attorney because everything is still, it's not frozen. It went to Muffy when she won the case. I believe she didn't return it or the judge ignored it. But at the end of it, my hands were tied. I was fighting a war without my gun. So I didn't know where the money was. The case went back to zero, and this is where we are.
Just to interject, so there'd be two questions I'm sure listeners would have. First question would be, how many years in are you at? 3-4 years into the lawsuit?
Well, it started in 2023.
Okay.
And we're still into it.
Yes. And then the other question would be, why didn't you like your lawyer?
Oh, my lawyer, he was slow. We didn't agree on certain things. I wanted him to file some motions that I thought were important, a mistake that the other side were making, a big mistake that they were making. So I wanted him to file some motion on that, and he didn't want to. And then we just didn't get along. After a while, I didn't believe in him, and he probably didn't believe in me. And it was just, we butted head, and that's not what you want in your attorney.
Thank you. No, I'm sure people will appreciate that because that would be an obvious question they would have.
Absolutely. So basically, I won the appeal and the case went back to zero, and here we are.
So at this point, you still haven't regained any of your assets. What is that like for you day to day, financially, physically, emotionally, and mentally?
It's terrible. I mean, it's, I have very generous friends, the friends that stayed with me anyway, that are keeping me going. But I still don't have access to anything, basically. It's a terrible situation. and started from a girl that had no case. She had no case. It's obviously she had no part in this horse. If she would have had part in this horse, no problem. If she wanted to stay a silent partner, then she would have got paid. But she didn't want to do that. She didn't want to do anything. And it didn't help. I mean, Mark Rain started this case on my side, and then he switched to Muffy's side. It's called cross claim or something like that. I'm not aware of it. And I still don't understand how, through the case, he can move around from me to her. But it happened to do that. But that's where we are. That's the case. And I mean, the case is too long for me to go through all the details. But more or less, this is where we are. And we will see where it ends. But this is unbelievable to be without your asset that amount of time. And it's quite difficult.
Well, and emotionally, you've obviously been impacted because Muffy was a pretty close and dear friend of yours for many years.
And so is Mark, for that matter. To be honest, I almost regret having made the deal with him. If I kept the horse with Muffy, none of this would have happened. But I tried to do the right thing, and it came back on me. You know, I really tried to do the right thing for Mark. And then it ended up kicking me in the butt because of it.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by the international law firm of Cooley LLP. Clients partner with Cooley on transformative deals, complex IP and regulatory matters, and high-stakes litigation. Cooley has nearly 1,400 lawyers across 19 offices in the United States, Asia, and Europe, and a total workforce of more than 3,000 people. Our connection to the law firm comes through Cooley partner and jumper rider Cullen Drescher, who competes in the high amateur and Grand Prix levels, in addition to leading Cooley's business restructuring practice from the firm's offices in New York City. It would be interesting for you to share what happened with Nika in all of this, because she should have been part of the frozen assets. But to my understanding, she was able to continue as a competitive horse and was actually...
Yeah, they basically, she was part of the frozen asset. And Mark, one day we were talking and he said, the judge is terrible and I'm sick of this and I'm going to take Nika out of this frozen asset thing. And before I knew it, the horse was in California jumping.
And I think I had the question of what happens when a horse is a frozen asset? Are they held somewhere? What's the situation?
Well, they're supposed to be held at the sheriff's facility, but these caliber of horses are too expensive. So they were ordered to stay at the stable and not cross any state line, which means they couldn't leave Florida whatsoever. And that's what they were ordered to do.
So it's a little bit like being quarantined.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So this is unusual that Nika was able to leave Florida and go to California.
Well, I mean, it's just Mark just did it on his own. And at the end of it, I thought it would create a huge problem with Muffy and their attorney would go crazy, but they were all quiet. So I'm not surprised that they had an inside deal, the both of them together to make this happen.
So where does this lawsuit sit today? You're still in the process of appealing one more time. And even though the case was found in your favor, and it's still ongoing, correct?
Yeah, it's still ongoing. What happened is after we went, the case was at zero. Everybody kind of went away from it for a while and took a break, and nobody did anything. And then one day I received an email saying there would be a Zoom call and everything, and I had no attorney. And I refused to go on the call because I learned my lesson once. I wasn't going to do it twice. I looked for pro bono as attorney in West Palm Beach and anywhere I could. There is no such thing as pro bono attorney around that region. And the case was too big to take at that point, to be honest. Brad Kelsey was able to do it, but I don't know if a pro bono attorney would be able to sort it out. But there isn't any. Nobody wanted to do it for free. We tried 4 or 5 of them, and so at the end, I did not go on any Zoom call. And judge, once again, without me having a lawyer, reversed the case and gave the case to Muffy again, just like that. So I'm appealing that decision again. So it's on appeal right now to the fact that it was given back to Muffy under the fact that I didn't have an attorney. So my hands are tied. I'm at war without my gun, and there's nothing I can do. I cannot hire an attorney. So the judge offered no help whatsoever, and there's nothing I could do. So the case was given back to Muffy. So she won again, and then I appealed again. I have a great friend of mine that's helping me do the appeal, and we will see where that will stand in about 8 months. We will see what comes of it. But once again, she did it without me having an attorney present. So I think it's the same thing as the first time.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot lose something because I don't have an attorney. So we'll see what happens.
So that one is to be continued. Let's move on to the second lawsuit that's impacted you. And maybe you could share with our listeners just a little background on that.
It's the Greg Aziz lawsuit in Canada. He was a client of Ainsley Vince at the time. And he has a daughter, Karina Aziz, that rides. And they bought horses from us at the beginning when she took riding a little more seriously. But let me give you a little background on Karina. She's had 15 trainers over the years, and so she's not an easy girl to please. I figure if somebody changes trainer more than 3 times, there's something wrong with the person. And she's had some great trainers. She's had Hank Noren, she's had Ian Miller, she's got Beth Underhill, she had Ainsley, and much more. It can't be the fault of all these trainers. So she's had 15 trainers, and I was the seller of the horses, and Ainsley was the agent. She was the agent of the Aziz, and she was telling me that she was looking for a horse to do that type of competition. And when I had that horse coming in from Europe, I would announce that I have a horse that could suit Karina to do what the specific that they told me. So the first horse, let's talk about Jumping Mouse. It wasn't a young horse. I think it was 7 or 8, but it had been brought up by Timothée Ancier and Kevin Stout. They were the riders on this horse in France. Lovely horse, very, very nice. The deal was done. Karina got the horse. I'm not sure if she even showed it or not, but they came back to me and they said that the horse was dangerous and I needed to be traded immediately. So I said, okay, no problem. Maybe bad luck, maybe bad chemistry. So I sold them another horse called Raminka, which they put another 150,000 on top, and they got Raminka. And I sent Jumping Mouse to Vancouver, and he was a very successful junior amateur horse for the rest of his career. So they've never had a problem with him being scary or doing any naughty things or whatsoever. So I don't know what they were talking about when they said this horse was dangerous. So Raminka competed with Ainsley and Karina and everything was fine, but she got a splint in the left front legs, and Greg decided that he wanted his vet, Dr. Cummins, to treat the horse, which was not Ainsley's vet. And Dr. Cummins I've never heard of him in the show jumping world. Mostly, I think he does racehorses for Greg, or I don't know. But anyway, I don't know the guy. Apparently, the injection was badly done. I don't know how you can badly miss a splint, but the injection created more problem than the actual splint at the end of it. And Dr. Patterson confirms that, which was Ainsley's vet afterwards, with a letter to Ainsley confirming that this injection was done wrong. And so Raminka was late, and they wanted to return it to me. And I was like, I don't know. I had a meeting at Greg Aziz's office where we talked about the horse, and he says, why don't you take it back and see what you can do with it? And the horse showed up with a $250,000 bill attached to it. And I was like, was he crazy? I mean, the horse had lost value already because Karina has been riding it, so the horse doesn't gain value with Karina. Second of all, it had the issue with the splint, and it wasn't half the horse that I sold. So already I didn't know what to do with the horse. I ended up selling it cheap to Vancouver to Brent and Laura Beliski, And they went on and used the horse and were happy as hell with this horse, Raminka. It ended up getting sound, and they were happy with the mare, and there was no problem. But something went wrong with the horse, or Karina didn't like the horse anymore, or she was not successful immediately. They would trade it or be unhappy or try to sue you or whatever. I mean, it was very drastic. And then from there, so that was that horse. And then we go to Raminka, which is a horse that I bought in Europe from Francois Matty. And I don't think she tried that one. I think it's a horse that I saw that'd be a good fit with her. And I bought the horse, and then the horse arrived, I think, in Florida. She tried the horse, and she got along well with it. She competed with the horse. And then all of a sudden, they said that the horse was nerved, like it was completely nerved to take the sensation in the feet. And it had 2 chips in his neck. I said, what are you talking about? 2 chips in the neck? I said, well, it could be 2 chip if one is malfunctioning. They put the same chip back to one that's functioning, but I never heard of such a thing. So I said, I have no idea, but these were not 2 different chips. The horse was really peppercorn. It was nothing more than perhaps the one chip didn't work and they used another one that was the same. I have no idea. But this I never verified myself. So this is what I've been told. So I have no idea whatsoever. And so they claimed she was nerved. So they were unhappy about that. But they still carried on. Beth Underhill showed it because she moved to Beth. And then Karina showed it. And the horse went on to be good for them and whatsoever. I don't know the end of the career of this one, but they went on. And this is one of the horses that was in the lawsuit against me. And they still were able to use it. And the final horse I'll talk about is really the one that's the most shocking one. It's a horse called Nasco de Blondel. It was a horse that I also bought from Francois Matty. That was exceptional jumper. It really was the creme de la creme. It was fantastic. And for a young rider, it was going to be the best. And so I sold it to the Aziz as a very, very good horse, upcoming horse, maybe for Karina to jump bigger. She was inspired to jump bigger. So I sold them the horse, and within 3 weeks, I think they competed with the horse. I think Ainsley rode it for sure. I don't know if Karina ever showed the horse, but they said it was a dangerous horse. It was very, very dangerous, and it was too dangerous to ride, and I needed to do something with the horse. But by that time, I was dealing with Beth Underhill because Beth had the horse, actually, by that time. She'd already changed trainer from Ainsley to Beth Underhill. And Beth ended up sending the horse to Emil Hendricks in Holland to try to do a trade with something or whatever. And Nasco de Blondel was ridden by Petronella Anderson in Europe. In the young riders in 2012 in Austria, she was a silver medalist in a young rider final at 1.50 m, and she was bronze medal in by team. So this horse was the top quality that I thought he was. He could handle 150, no problem. And that was another horse that was named in the suit. This is just a few horses that I'm talking about. There's more that are like that, but more or less it's the same thing.
And what's the time span that this happened over?
Oh my God, the lawsuit's been going on for 15 years. Well, we had to pause at one point because Greg was indicted in the U.S. by an Alabama court. This was a multi-million-dollar scam on the teacher retirement funds. And he was arrested in 2013 getting off his plane in Chicago. So we had to pause for that. And he ended up, I don't know if the judge ordered him or he made a plea deal, but he ended up having to pay $21 million back, and he was on 5 years probation. If he thinks I'm a crook, I think he better look at himself first. And that's common knowledge. If you Google Greg Aziz, you'll find it. It's not me saying that. It's all over the internet. This is what I have to deal with.
So are those cases closed? What happened with that particular lawsuit? So he named a number of horses in the lawsuit. And I guess my question would be, what does he allege happened?
Oh, he alleged that they were lame or they were dangerous or all the above of what I said. As soon as one horse didn't work, that was it.
My head's actually spinning just with the numbers that you've shared with me. And I'm actually thinking, why did you continue to do any business with him at all?
After all, when you look at it, you wonder why. Well, there were some successful horses. We bought 2 horses for Ainsley that turned out to be really, really good. He could have sold one of them for a lot of money. He didn't. But those horses worked out very well.
When he named all these horses in the lawsuit for different reasons, fundamentally, was he suing you for misrepresentation of these horses, or what was the wording there?
Yes, absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. Misrepresentation of the horses and this and that. Exactly what he sued me for.
How did this lawsuit finish?
I lost the lawsuit. I was not very well at the time. I wasn't well at all. The reason I lost the lawsuit is I did not know this court date was happening. My lawyer, Tim Danson, a good friend of mine and an excellent lawyer, didn't tell me about it, or if he did, I don't remember. And my bookkeeper had a letter in her possession that was intended for something else completely different, that Tim Danson begged her to give him the letter, and went and gave the letter to the Aziz lawyer and the judge. That letter was never intended for that case. Tim never told me he was going to use this letter. I was very clear with my bookkeeper to never release that letter to anybody else other than what it was intended for. Tim took the letter without telling me and presented it to the court. At the end of it, because of the letter, I lost the case. And Tim withdrew himself immediately. And it's very strange because Tim was, like I said, he's one of the best lawyers. And for him not to have kept me updated on what was going on with the case, for one thing, I'm not saying he could have told me. I was really in bad shape. I had no memory. I was in bad shape. And what's hard to take is that he was a lawyer that was very meticulous. If we had a piece of paper or a letter or something like that, he would dissect it with me over the phone and made me read the letter 100 times when it was sunny, when it was raining, when it was windy, 2 different times, and asking me questions about the letter. He would quiz me forever before he would ever enter his letter in evidence with the court. He did that without my knowledge. I'll never understand why he did that. I'll never understand. Without my okay, without anything. It's very alarming. I lost a very good friend. And on top of it, when he recused himself, the Canadian law for an attorney, he must still stay with his clients and help him through until he finds an attorney. He's supposed to act just as if he was his attorney and help him. I don't have a piece of paper from this case whatsoever. I don't have anything, any knowledge of anything other than the award amount. And he never helped me at all. The moment he bailed out, I never heard anything. And that was it. I don't know what he had against me, but it was not normal. It's not himself to do what he did at all. It's something that he wanted to hurt me with, or I have no idea.
And just to let the listeners know, the contents of the letter suggested that you were in the care of a physician in Belgium, and that's the reason you weren't able to attend the hearing. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That's basically why you lost, because it was considered fraudulent and you hadn't appeared. That is correct.
I sent a picture from the hospital after my surgery, and I sent him the picture to Tim, not to share with the court once again, just as from a friend to another, and he ended up sharing it with the court and all that. So I don't really know. I wasn't paying attention in this case, to be honest. It had been going on for 15 years. I had been deposed like 7, 8 years before that for the case. Tim had deposed Greg Aziz for the case as well. I never thought it would see the end of the day. And so there you go. So this is another thing I cannot defend myself on. And when it rains, it pours. Yeah, this was a very dramatic time for me.
I think it's important to share with listeners what your health situation was at that point, because you had been diagnosed with a tumor. You had been treated or had ongoing treatment for the tumor. This impacts your cognitive abilities. And you're dealing with that and trying to also participate in these lawsuits.
I was in no shape to comprehend what was going on, to be honest. I was not myself. My memory was gone, and I would actually spend most of my days just laying down. Yeah, I was not involved, but I don't know. Tim really, really hurt me, and I'll never know why he did that, but he did it, and this is the situation I'm in.
In the end, with that particular lawsuit, it was found in favor of Azizi. Are you still outstanding in terms of having to pay an award to him?
Yeah, but I can't pay anything. My account is frozen, and it's all for nothing. They're suing me for nothing. There's nothing there. They're going after me like there's a pot of gold at the end of it, and there isn't. So they're pretty much wasting their time, to be honest.
Wow. I was going to say that's a lot you're handling.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it, like, yeah, the Muffy case and all that, what we just did with the appeal, that was quite tiring.
Mm-hmm.
We're not lawyers. We had to do it with the best, research a lot of things and research cases and do all that. We submit the lawsuit, the appeal. So now we just sit back and wait again another 8 months, 9 months, maybe a year. We never know.
And what would your advice be to other trainers and to riders as far as when you're setting up contracts for these horses? Because it is common that horses don't always work out because it isn't just about the athletic ability. As to your point, it's about the connection, it's about the rider's ability. And when you're selling horses to amateur riders, it really is a bit of a gamble.
Yeah.
Is there anything moving forward that you would do differently to protect yourself? And is there anything that a potential purchaser should be doing to protect themselves?
Well, I mean, the problem is there's no contract. I mean, I had a contract, like a standard contract, that they got the horse vetted to their satisfaction, and on and on and on and on, price the horse and blah, blah, blah. I have all that. But if they decide to sue you, they will sue you. Doesn't matter the contract that you have, to be honest. I think everybody that's involved in this business will go through that at one point or another. If they're selling horses, there will be some unhappy customer. It happens all the time. For a bunch of happy ones, the odd one that doesn't work, could be very long in court like I was, but people are very quick to go to court these days. Very, very quick. They either want a new horse or they sue you, one or the other. But they try the horse for a short time. They answer in a class or two. If they're not satisfied, they're quickly on your back and they want the solution fixed. But, we sell an animal that we think is suitable for the job, but we have no say in what happens when it leaves our hands. It's up to the new trainer and up to the rider to do the right thing to make sure that it goes well, meaning start at a very low height, get used to the horse, ride him at home for a month maybe before competing. Try to put the odds on their side. A lot of people just jump right in the ring with a new horse, and it's not the right thing to do. If you're an amateur buying a horse, you really need to get used to it and find the key to the horse. You need to make a team with your horse at any level. And if that team is not there, you will not have success. The horse needs to like you, and you need to like your horse. And that's the most important thing. If you dislike your horse, most likely your horse will dislike you.
I love that you've pointed that out because I think sometimes people do acquire a new mount and assume that they should be able to just jump in the ring at the same level that that horse was competing at previously. And as you said, you need to build that relationship and the team and the connection before you're able to move up to another level. And there's no reason why you shouldn't be starting at a lower level.
So, there's so many shows now, if you miss 3 or 4 shows or something like that. The problem is a lot of horses are sold in Florida during the circuit, and people are anxious to get started because it's only 12 weeks. I mean, 12 weeks, it's a lot. But when they get a new horse, they want to get going because there's only 4 weeks left or 6 weeks left, but they feel like they really have to jump on the boat and get it done. So I find that it happens a lot in Florida.
So what would be your hope moving forward? The Azizi case, I guess you could file an appeal if you wanted to, but it doesn't.
I think it's past the deadline. This case is done. It's what it is, and there's nothing I can do about it. Nobody's advised me on this, or I have no idea. I don't have a piece of paper from that case. I don't have the ruling of the case. I have nothing, zero. For all I know, I mean, this is just what I heard. It's not even, it's for sure the truth, but I never receive anything that says that I was found guilty of these charges and blah, blah, blah. And so I have nothing to, even if I wanted to appeal, I have nothing to appeal with.
The hope is that the Muffy Guthrie case, in this circumstance, that potentially you could get your assets back, provided you win this next appeal. But I suppose, I don't know legally how it works. How many times can one appeal?
Well, I think you can, I don't know either how many times you can appeal, but this is different because before we appeal, it was also for the funds. And this is a similar appeal, but it's similar because I was not giving an attorney. I couldn't find an attorney, and she gave the case to Muffy just like that. Without, and I filed an emergency motion to go on a Zoom call, and as a private person, because with your private bank account, you can represent yourself. But I was nervous. I just wanted to go on the Zoom and find out where the money stood. That's all I wanted to do. I wasn't going to answer any question. I wasn't going to do anything. And she okayed it at the beginning, and then the next day she canceled it. So I never had the chance to have my emergency motion read, and that's basically it.
So basically where we sit is to be continued.
Well, to be continued. I mean, at this point, I'm not, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, it's the way it is. There's nothing I can do about it. But hopefully cross the finger, and hopefully the appeals comes through, and we'll go from there. I don't know what they can do after that. If I was to win this, I don't know what they can do. I have no idea. I mean, the other thing is I have all my medals, my Olympic medals and my world championship. My Pan American game was at Mark Rain's house. When he bought his new home in Wellington, I offered to keep it there, because I was moving houses fairly often from buying and selling. So I thought it would be a nice decoration in his house. And now he won't return the medal. He's basically stole them. And when I approached him, he said he'd give them away to somebody to take care of. And I said, well, why can't I get him back? And then I got a few people to ask him to release the medal back to me. It would mean a lot to me to see my medals on the wall on a dark day, trust me. And there's a lot of dark days. And for him to do that, I find it, this is my private asset. It's not that he can even keep it, whatever comes of anything. It's not like he can keep it. It's really private asset.
These are your gold, silver, and bronze medals? I had no idea, Eric. That has to be painful.
And I don't know why one would do that, honestly. I really don't know. I tried every way I can to try to get them, but he has not released them. They're not his. It's not his horse that won. He has no business to do with that. They were just there for decoration. So it's very sad that he chooses to further hurt me by keeping these medals.
Well, I'm really sorry to hear that. I imagine on a dark day, looking at those medals would actually bring a smile to your face.
Would mean a lot to me. But if you ever listen to this podcast, it would mean a lot to me to have my medals.
Well, Eric, I want to thank you once again for continuing to share your story. Painful as it is, you are doing your best to be authentic and let our listeners know what's going on with you. And I certainly hope that we're going to get to chat again and share some happier stories. But in the meantime, fingers crossed that perhaps in the near future, this appeal will work in your favor. And also certainly would love to see you have your medals back.
Yeah, thank you. I really would like to have them back. It would mean a lot to me. Like I said, I have a lot of dark days, and just to look at them would bring joy to me.
If you'd like to learn more about the show, upcoming guests, please follow us on Instagram or Facebook at Horsetails with Kat. Shout out to my new listeners in Georgia, my continuing supporters in Virginia, and some new listeners in Toronto. And also just wanted to let everybody know that Rachel Ford is a young entrepreneur with a company called phclothingco.com. Please check her out on her website and on Instagram. She could use a little support.